Hey, what's up guys? And I'm really excited. I'm gonna be talking really fast because I haven't really scripted this out in my head because I wasn't expecting to do this today and I have 3 hours to get this done. So you may be wondering, what am I so excited about? Well, I'm gonna be building a new computer. So, alright, actually, let's go on a little tour to the other side of the room. So this is my computer. It has served me well for about 3 years now. So anyway, here are the parts for my new computer. So let me tell you what I got here and give you the justification briefly. So the new computer is going to be called Warp Core ITX, or just Warp Core. So first of all, I will be moving to a mini ITX form factor. And I did that for a number of reasons, mainly just to save space and also because I don't really use all the space in my ATX case. It's kind of massive, I can barely lift it. So for my case, I went ahead and went with the Phanteks Evolve ITX, tempered glass edition, of course, just because I really love my Evolve ATX. It was a really solid case. I still really like it. It's just really, really big. So I wanted to go ahead and go with the mini ITX version of the same case. It's basically the exact same case, just in miniature. It's about half the size of the ATX version. Now, on to the rest of the parts. So, I'm going to be going with Ryzen for this system, and the reason is because most of the things I do on my computer these days are more productivity-oriented. I don't do as much gaming anymore. Really, sort of things like Adobe Premiere and Blender and things like that that really leverage the high core count. So, for my CPU, I have you can't read that, but it's the Ryzen 7 1700 8-core processor. It runs at, I believe, 3 gigahertz, but I'm probably going to be overclocking it. It was actually a gift, so I got it for free. I might stick with this. I probably will be upgrading to a second-generation Ryzen processor when those come out in April. Those aren't out yet, but they will be out in April. When they come out, I might or might not upgrade to one of them, but I won't have to change any of my other parts because it's going to be on the same socket. So that brings us to the motherboard, which is a BioStar Racing X370 GTN, which I chose because it's basically the only mini ITX Ryzen motherboard that would work for me. I mean, it's cheap, it's solid, it's a good board. This seems shallow, but it's actually really important to me. All the other ones had a really weird reddish-orange color scheme going on for them, and I like to build my computers in blue, or so. For me, it's either neutral or it has to be RGB. This one is both, so this was just a good choice. Ryzen Mini ITX board, it was cheap. It got good reviews, so that's going to be the motherboard I'm going with. And brings us to the RAM here. I have 16 gigs of Corsair Vengeance DDR4 RAM. I went with a 1X 16 gig stick because I do want to eventually have 32 gigs of RAM in this computer. But if you've paid any attention to the PC ecosystem recently, you'll know that RAM prices are kind of insane right now. They're more than double what they usually are. So I went ahead and I got 16 gigs now for basically a side grade, just to get me up and running, and then I'll get another 16 later when the price comes back down, because I can keep going with 16 gigs for a while, and then I can go up to 32 when the prices come down. So that brings us to the graphics card, which is actually not changing. I just got the box out. It's the same graphics card. I'm keeping my same GTX 970 that's in my current system because well, for one thing, graphics cards are basically impossible to buy right now. And the other is I'm waiting for the next generation of graphics cards to come out. I'm going to be getting a GTX 2080, but those are probably coming out sometime in April as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep the same graphics card for now, and then I'll upgrade to a 2080 when they come out, which is probably March, April sort of time frame. So again, keeping the same one for now, but it will be upgraded later. Also, I have a Corsair RM650X power supply, 650 watt, 80 plus gold, solid power supply. Actually, the Evolve ITX does support full ATX power supplies, which is a really cool selling point. Didn't have to go with an SFX power supply, which is really nice. I also have my Corsair H100i V2 liquid cooler for my CPU. And that's just about it, except for I will be keeping my same storage from my current system. It's been serving me well. I don't have really any reason to upgrade my storage. And that is a Samsung 960 EVO 500GB SSD as my boot drive, a 240GB PNY generic SATA SSD for cache, storing footage and things, and then I have a 2TB Hitachi Ultrastar mechanical hard drive for mass storage. So that's all staying the same. I'm actually going to have to go over to my current computer and take the drives out in order to, start putting this together. But with that in mind, I'm really excited, so I really want to get started. So let's go ahead and move on to the montage portion of this video as I go ahead and get a building. Alright guys, so at this point, the system is at a point where it is very messy, as you can see. Not been very well cable managed at all, but at this point, I just want to try and turn it on and see if it's gonna work, or if I've done something stupid, or if something's broken, or... yeah, okay, so moment of truth time. So I've only connected up the power and this monitor. So... okay, here we go. Turning on the power supply. Okay, we have a light on. Reset button there. Power switch. Okay. I don't know, are these... can't tell which fans are spinning. The big one's a CPU fan. Okay, case fan spinning. I cannot tell if the CPU fan is on. So, can't tell if graphics card is on. but the light on the CPU cooler, it's not on. I don't feel any airflow, or is there just very... Okay, and the screen isn't on anyway. Okay, so is the hard drive spinning? The case fan... Is it blowing? Pop the front off. Ooh. There is no front case fan. It was supposed to come included. So I might be running a system with no fans currently, which is concerning. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and power it off. Alright guys, well my current working... Oh, by the way, there's a cat. Say hi, cat. Say hi to the internet. So my current working theory is that there's something wrong with the fan controller. Either it's broken or I wired it up wrong. And because of that, because GPU powers up, the case powers up, the hard drives power up. So it seems, but the CPU does not warm up. The CPU cooler does not power up. The fans do not power up. So I think there's a fan controller problem. And what might be happening is the motherboard will frequently try to detect the CPU cooler. And if it does not detect the CPU cooler, then I suspect it might not boot up all the way, because the CPU, it seems like it partially powers up, but not all the way. So my suspicion is that because the CPU cooler is not detected, it doesn't let the system turn on all the way so that the CPU doesn't kill itself. So that's my current working theory, and that's my cat destroying things. But it's getting kind of late now, so I'm going to have to come back to this some other time. So I'll let you guys know when I have a status update. Okay, so it is now the next day, and two things are different. For one, I am sick, so I feel like crap right now. But I have made some progress computer-wise. So it turns out actually two things were wrong with it. So one, on the fan controller, there is a white header here, and that actually needs to be connected to the CPU fan header on the motherboard in order for the fan controller to work. So as soon as I did that, all the fans spun up, and that works. But it still didn't boot up at all. But actually, I just reseated the RAM module into the other slot, and now the system will boot up into BIOS, as I will now demonstrate. If I can find the power switch, there we go. So as I will now demonstrate, it does in fact boot, fan spinning and everything, and it'll come from the BIOS in a second here. And there we go. So right now I just gotta do some BIOS configuration and get it booting into Windows. So that's cool. It works! It works! This is my actual desktop running off of that. Which still looks kind of messy. You'll note the fan completely hanging out, and oh yeah, this is totally unsecure. And also, there are no side panels. I kinda, when I built it, I left everything kinda loose so that I could change things if I needed to get it up and running, which I did. So now that it works, I'm gonna work on prettying it up. I also need to add my LED strip from my old case, which is, I'm not quite sure where I'm gonna put, because I have a NZXT Hue Plus RGB kit. I might end up putting it there next to the power supply, because the controller is kind of bulky. But yeah, also I need to add 2 more fans to the front, because turns out, while the Phanteks Evolve ITX does come with a 200mm fan pre-installed in the front, the tempered glass edition, which is the one I got, does not. But luckily I do have some spare fans, so that shouldn't be a problem. Anyway. Okay, so now, for the real reason that I'm sure you guys decided to watch this video, the peeling of the plastic on the tempered glass. Here we go. Okay guys, so it is done. It is good to go. It is finished. Here we go. So here it is. My new gaming editing workstation, which I have dubbed the Warp Core. And it is up and running. Windows handled the transition just fine. It didn't even need to reinstall it. Everything's good to go. Everything's detected. It's all working. Got my Hue Plus in there. Everything's great. Loving the tempered glass going on there. Really, really nice. Also, I did some benchmarks on it. The CPU stays really cool. It maxed out at 40 degrees Celsius, even under intense load, 100%. And so what that says to me, I have lots of overclocking headroom, because the Ryzen 1700 comes stock at only 3 gigahertz. But because I have such a good cooling solution, I should have plenty of room to overclock that to maybe 3.6, 3.8. Something like that is what I've read online you can get on this particular chip. So that'll be fun. So as I mentioned before, there are still some upgrades I have planned for this system. In April, I believe, is when they're coming out. The next generation of NVIDIA graphics cards is going to be released. So I'm going to be replacing my GTX 970 with one of those. Probably a 2080 or 2070, something along those lines. When those come out, to get me some better GPU performance. But I've been doing some benchmarks on the CPU. I'm getting about 50% faster than my 4790K in most workloads. Stays ridiculously cool. It's really great. Super happy with this. It's also much smaller for comparison here. This is my current system, and there's my old system. Actually, that's not a very good size comparison, but anyway, it's kind of hard to tell on video, but take my word for it, the old one's a lot bigger. So I can actually like lift this one, and I can take it with me places. It's gonna be incredible. So anyways, I guess that's about it for this video then. So goodbye.